Okay, good morning, my outstanding friends. Once again, we're looking at the unexplained things, and this is Myron Cook, and he's pretty confident in his geological skills, and he's out walking around. He's done a lot of these, and he's getting a lot of coverage, and he's making a lot of claims, and I'd like to respond to what his claims are. And that's all this is. This is a Fair Use Act strictly for educational purposes. And watch what happens as he goes into his video. Now, don't forget, it's Myron Cook, and he's a geologist, and he's got some pretty serious opinions here. So here we go. Starting Myron Cook, take one.
Sometimes, as we explore the world around us, we are fortunate enough to stumble upon features that excite and puzzle us all at the same time. It can be quite an adventure looking for clues, making observations, and developing theories as to the origin of mysterious features.
Why, hello out there. I'm Myron Cook. One of the many things I enjoy about geology is as I hike around, I see things that other people that don't have geology skills don't even see.
I want to mention something. He's right. He's a geologist, and he's looking at these patterns and trying to make some sense of them. And he's finding some very exceptional things. I've seen his stuff, and I tried to engage with Myron. We didn't click, so I'm doing this in absentia, more or less, because I'd love to have an engagement with him back and forth on a Zoom. If you can contact Myron, I'd love to do that. Now, he's going to talk about what he sees as a geologist. I'm going to talk about what I see as a mudfossilologist. Here we go.
Or aren't able to enjoy. So it makes my hikes more enjoyable, I'd like to think.
Let me back that up, because he's right. People they're not enjoying what they're seeing. They don't understand, and it's mysterious. Here goes.
One of the many things I enjoy about geology is as I hike around, I see things that other people that don't have geology skills don't even see or aren't able to enjoy. So it makes my hikes more enjoyable, I'd like to think anyway. And as you go along with me on videos, I hope that you'll gain the skills of reading the rocks and seeing things in a different way and enjoy the great outdoors even more. Now, the other day I was out here in this very area a couple weeks ago, just hiking, trying to see new areas, and I stumbled upon something that's pretty darn interesting in my view. And so I want to hike over and see that and explore the options as to what we think it is. So let's get started, shall we?
I'm with you, Myron. So what we're going to do is he's going to make his assessment of what he's seeing, and I am going to make my assessment. I'll show the evidence, because I'm not going to make any claims about any evidence. Now, he's going to try to present a persuasive argument as to how these things form, and I'm sure it's going to be something interesting. I haven't watched this, but he does some interesting stuff. I give him credit. He's trying to figure things out. Nobody can. That looks like sanding. It sounds solid. You see this now? We're mud fossil people. You know what you're looking at here. This is layers of membrane. All right, and these are different tissue layers. So let's see what he comes up with. Here goes.
As I hike along, I'm thinking about enjoying geology as you hike different areas. And that occurred to my wife and me about a week ago. We were at Mount Rushmore. And yeah, the sculptures and the granite there were spectacular. But there was some fascinating geology. And as we hiked along the trail, we were seeing some really beautiful geology. And of course, we were stopping and enjoying that right along with the sculptures, while all the people, they had no idea what was there. Nobody that I noticed ever even looked and saw it at all. So that's, as I say, a fun part of all this.
Did you just see what he walked by? keep your eye on this, and as he comes over here, this is nothing but biology that's weathering away.
Nobody that I noticed ever even looked and saw
Watch
it
up here.
at all.
Look, this is all membranes. This is all, and this is really weak stuff. It could honestly be in the skin area or somewhere. It's weak stuff, and it's eroding away easily. It's not the real solid stuff.
So that's, as I say, a fun part of all this. Well, we're getting close now to this feature. I sure hope you find it as interesting as I did at the time, a couple of weeks ago, or whatever it was.
Right, that's basically a tendon enthesis. You know, I've shown these
Isn't this
many
fascinating?
times.
That sphere that sits underneath, and you can see a hole where it went. It's like a ball.
It's called a tendon. It's an enthesis. Now, every part of a body in a creature has to be anchored so that it can stretch and pull, and it comes back to where it's supposed to be. And that's what these things did. And there's a whole ton of different ones. And the different creatures probably had different styles, but I'll show you a dozen or so different styles.
A hole that it sat in. Let's look around the other side here.
Let's see how he figures out what
three-dimensional
causes it.
perspective. Yeah, it's like a half sphere, isn't it?
Don't fall over.
Interesting texture on it. Now, if we come back and look at that ball a little closer, I find that kind of interesting myself. See what we think. Huh. It's kind of covered in silt. I think I'll clean that off and take a look at it. But it's sure interesting, isn't it? Okay, so I've cleaned off the ball a little just so we can see what's underneath that silt and sand, and it's got a darker look to it, doesn't it? I think it's a darker color than this outer sphere. So, interesting.
That will also have a stalk coming out of it somewhere. And it could have been on the other side. I could see it when he was showing the other side right here. Whoops. It could have attached right there, but I don't think so. Oh, well, it might have had. I don't know. Usually that would have fallen off, and you'd see a cavity there. I think the attachment was on this side, and it runs into that central ball, and then it can wiggle around inside these. I believe this is the style he's talking about here. There's several different styles.
Come back and look at that ball a little closer. I find that kind of interesting myself.
He's going to take it off.
See what we think.
Now let's see what he has to say here.
If you own a home
here we
within
go.
90 minutes of Danbury, you could be missing out on a new program that's
Don't
giving
miss out on
homeowners
that.
over.
Here we go.
So I sent out an email to them, those that have subscribed to my newsletter, and asked them to give me some impressions of what it looks like. Don't worry about the geology or anything. Some of them responded with geologic ideas and others not. But it was fun to get the feedback. Let me get...
Okay, I'm going to give you some feedback, Myron. I'm going to show you precisely what I believe that is, and because of not understanding the biology, my friend, you do a fine job of the geology. You're trying to work these things in. You're working at it, but it just doesn't work. This is biology. This didn't just happen and pop up. So I'm going to continue on and try to find out what his determination of this structure was, how it came to be. He's asking people. Well, I'm going to respond to what he's asking first, and then we'll see what he had to say. Okay, so Myron asked about that ball with the thing in the center, and this would be, if you broke this off, you'd have basically the same thing. That stalk, I believe, goes to a ball in the center, and I have other things to support that. Now, the things that I'm talking about are gigantic. You see what he had there? The stalk comes down, the ball is in the center. This is basically what he had found there. Now, what I want Myron to explain to me is this. This is my friend Tyson's location, and this is what he has there. Now, there's another layer exactly like this right up here. All right, so it's a two-layered situation. And in between, there's a different situation. But this, I'm going to tell you right now, is what's called a bilipid layer. And this is from biology. This is a creature's body. You see that little blue thing right there? You see these holes in there? Nobody chopped those. Those are part of this creature's body. You see all these little edges all around here, all that? At one time, this was a solid mat of phospholipids. Phosphorus, primarily lipids. Lipids means fats, and the fats are in here, and these are two phospholipid membranes. These were all glued together with these slurpees. They all have that to keep them so that they're flexible, but they stay as a mat, because the only things allowed through come through these channels. Now, can I show you that in anatomy? Yes, I can. Here's what it looks like. Well, you saw it right here. Here's what they are. These are those balls. And they don't completely stay exactly round, obviously. They change a little bit. Now, so we had one layer here and one layer up there. In your body, that's a layer, you could hold that up as a sheet and you could see right through it. It's that thin in the human body. And that layers over every single thing in your entire body. This is what's called interstitium now, which is this was a fluid-filled highway. They didn't realize it was filled with fluid only a few years ago. As a matter of fact, here's the article right here. 2018, meet your interstitium, a newfound organ. That's in here. You see that fluid-filled highway? They didn't realize that. And in addition, they didn't realize, maybe they did, but the fluid-filled highway they didn't, because by the time they autopsied them, it was flat. The fluid came out. There was no fluid left. But these are little balls, and these are the balls that he's walking around with. He's going to show you a whole other field of balls in a second. And they're everywhere, these balls. And those balls are from tendons. Tendons have straps that come down and they lock into these balls. When you die, all the rest is cheap stuff. The balls are tough as hell. The rest just rots away or disintegrates, washed away in a great flood, all that stuff. And the remnant was all these balls. Yeah. Okay, once again, this is giant stuff, as was written in the ancient text. This is a tendon. And they come in like big, fibrils, basically. They start, and then they get smaller in bundles and smaller and smaller, until they get to the end, which is the tiniest little fibrils. That's these. However, they don't just stop there. They anchor to the balls that were in the flesh or in the bone. And that's these balls here. All right, there's two different types of tendons. There's a ponerosis tendon, and I'll show you that in a second. And then this is the rope-style tendon. This tendon comes down in a rope with all fibers, and then the balls lock in wherever they lock into bones or like that. Now, the other one is a ponerosis tendon, and here's one that's damaged. Where is it? Where are you? A ponerosis. I know I had him here somewhere. Here he is. All right, a ponerosis tendon is a flat tendon like this, and this is it right here. And these straps run down through a little hole in that tendon, and there's a ball on the end of the strap. See through the hole? That's a hole. This is a hole. It goes through. It's supposed to be here. It's injured. This thing is pulled out. It's not supposed to be like that. That's an injury. So that should have locked in here. And then your muscle pulls against this tendon. So it can slide back and forth, but it always comes back to where the ball is anchored. That's just, and they're in rows and rows of them. And they come across here, and some of them have a little angle on them. I have one here, I'll show you. Okay, I'm going to try to explain to you how this works. Now, when it's all wet now, you can see, hopefully you can see the band, and that's that strap where it comes up through. And that would have anchored right to that ball. And it broke off right before it came out of here. So this is snapped off right here, coming that way, and that's this piece. And the stalk would have come right out of there coming up. So this has some of this along with it, like some extra stuff, because normally it's just that one strap comes to that ball. Now, this is an aponeurosis tendon, and that ball is tough as hell. And there's all these little white fibers in there that run up, and they come up and attach here too. Now, the what was I going to tell you? You saw the stalk. I think you should be able to see that. And the ball. Oh yeah, I want to see that rind around there, that brown layer around there. I'm going to show you that hopefully in a microscope. It's kind of shiny because it's a little polished up, but anyway, that's that, and that's in their flat membranes, and they use these to make the walls down in Mexico, the Incas and the Aztecs and all of them, whoever, the Mayans. They made these walls down in Peru and Bolivia and all that, and they had big gigantic equipment down there to do it. They cut slabs off of these because these things were giant creatures. There's no other way to talk about it. You see this ball I just showed you here? See this? That's the same ball as this. All right, don't forget. Look again here at the mat. Here it is. The strap comes off. It goes down into a ball that seats into whatever it locked into. Now, in the desert, we have this. This is at Arches National Park. And that ball is eroded away. This stuff eroded away. The ball's still there. The balls are very, very tough. And the strap is still there in one place. And there's a guy walking on it, and I wouldn't walk on it if I was him. There it is right there. This is it. This is the ball and strap. That's the strap down here, the ball. And normally there would have been something here. What it was, I don't know. Probably bone or something. And that anchored here, and that is the strap. And then there was some flesh or tendon here that would have gone here. That's gone away too. So all you have is the ball and the strap. Those are very, very tough. The balls are tough. You can see them. There's a ball here, a ball here, a ball here. There's another one right there. And this was a stalk that broke off. I think you probably can see that. You see, I believe that was a stalk with the fiber coming right out of the center that broke off. All right, and you see all these layers of tissue? This is nothing but layers of tissue. And it's the same thing over here. Now the ball is still here. Almost in its entirety, you can see. But whatever this surface was, and I don't know what it was, but it's gone. that I can tell you. But it was anchored right up to here. Stop and think about what you're looking at. Now this is Arches National Park, and again, that's the strap. I showed you how that strap works, and this was a aponeurosis tendon, which means that there was something sliding back and forth here. Now, it eroded out of here. The chemistry in the area dictates what is going to stay and what's going to go. Sometimes there's acids and certain things go. Sometimes there's salts and the other things go. Sometimes it's whatever. But I've seen, as I was talking to another guy the other day, anything can transition into anything. It's just the way it is. It depends on the chemistry that was we were into when these things solidified. So this is it right here. And in this condition here, it must have had a lot of maybe salts, I don't know. Maybe acids, because, well, it's hard to say. You'd have to do some chemistry on site and see what remained and what left. And flesh has a tendency to preserve in saltiness. That's what I've observed. And if it was a salty area and it stayed salty for a certain amount of time, you have a lot better chance that the stuff preserved nicely and didn't turn into erosive materials. Acid stuff breaks a lot of bonds and is a very invasive pH. It depends on how acid it was. And then again, it depends on, was there a lot of blood in that area? Was there a lot of metals? Was there a lot of calcium? It's so hard to say what happened in what area. Was it? Did the stuff come down and settle down in here, and the heavy stuff went down, and the lighter stuff went up? And how hot was it there? Because we almost got hit by Venus. Anybody that's been following me should understand all this stuff by now. And if you haven't, you can go back and see the videos. I got a bazillion of them. And again, I'd love to have Myron just look at this and just engage with me, because I did try to engage with him, and he responded, but he said we really had nothing to talk about, that I think he thought I was crazy, but I understand that. I'm not getting upset at anybody. I just want to have a discussion. He's making statements, I'm making statements. Well, let's see what holds the water. And that, I say, is a membrane, and that's the other, and it's a bilipid membrane. And it's not, I mean, you can see it, there's absolutely no question. That's that little jobber coming up between, and here's all these channels, these protein channels, and where you let things in and out. A membrane is the protective layer on all of your different surfaces that separate from one another, because they don't want to be invaded. So only allow things in that are supposed to come in, and keep things out that are supposed to come out. And this is a fatty layer, and it's got two different types of water affinities. You don't have to know all that much about it. You just have to know it's a mat. And when it is hardened up, it became this. Remember, 2 layers, and all these holes, and all that little blue squiggly thing. Remember that? That's this right here. There it is right there. I mean, this is just off the charts crazy. You see that? And all of these, nobody cut these holes. They're all just naturally homegrown. And that's the upper layer that is the same as this layer, because it's a bilipid layer. And in between, there's that fatty stuff. It's just really, it turns into like almost like sandy, I guess. You have to take a look at it. I haven't been there. This is Tyson's doing this out there. And he's on the coast of Oregon. I think I told you that, Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures. And we were talking about the chemistry of because he's right now trying to figure out what's going on inside these cells, which are phospholipids. They're phosphorus. There's got to be some kind of phosphorus in there. We don't have the ability to do the chemistry and stuff. We don't have any funds for that kind of stuff. It'd be interesting to find out, because he's finding that the catalase reacts anywhere inside of that, which is what you'd expect, because it's every single cell in your body, every single cell, 100%, blood cells, everything, have membranes, and they all have catalase. So once you're inside the body, and you're either in blood or membranes or whatever, but blood and membranes, and inside a tissue is blood and membranes. So once he breaks that out, he's inside of the membrane. So he's like in a 3rd layer or a 2nd layer deep inside, but there's a lot to look at here. Because these things are gigantic. They're absolutely huge compared to what's in us. And then the other chemistry here, look at this. This is how big things are. You see this? This is fascia. And what it is, these are fluid-filled bags. And this is collagen. And you see the brown stuff? That's like a tougher stuff. And it's a springy stuff. So that balls anchor. The springy stuff opens the bag up. The fluid can squish around this way and that way, and this is the rubbery stuff. All right, so that you can pull it this way, you can pull it that way, you can do it this way. Always comes back to where it's supposed to be. Now, this, my friends, is the layer, which you call fascia, skin, whatever, but it's a coating between that and something else that is trying to invade you, whether it's the outside world or it's inside you. And you need a layer between every single organ and every single muscle and tendon, and that's it. And then right below it is the fluid-filled highway, which is this right here. All right, and that is what services all your membranes. And here it is right here in pretty good size. Now, what are we looking at? This is Hunstanton Beach in the United Kingdom. This right here is fascia or skin, I don't know what, but it's the separation layer, and that goes right above your interstitium, and which is the interstitium which has all the balls in it. Now, as it erodes the floppy stuff, remember I told you, here's what you got. You got the top layer is the skin, let's say, or whatever it is, it's the fascia. Then you got the little fluid-filled highway, which I'll show you below. It's redder than the rest. They don't really show it well here, because this is pretty much a new organ. Now, below that is all the balls and the little springy things and the fluidy stuff, really cheap stuff. It really washes away easy. That's why these things are all washing away when the waves come in. So let's look, just think if the waves come in here and here and here. It would wash this away and wash that away, and it would keep eroding here, and the top would just fall down below, and all the balls, which are tough as hell, would stay in a round ball form, and all the other stuff, which is cheap, would turn into mud. Did that happen? Yes, it did. All right, here's exactly what happened. The white stuff is the fascia or the skin. This is the floppy stuff underneath. That right there, that red layer, is that fluid-filled highway. It's not thick. They never even knew it was here before until 2018. And below that is where all the balls are. Now, the balls are tough. They just dropped down as the waves came in. The white stuff just fell down over the top. You see, as it ate away at the red stuff. And then it just collapsed, turning into the mud. It literally turns into mud. Flesh turns into mud. That was somebody's flesh or some creature's flesh at one time. I know. It's just way over the average person's mind to even consider this could be possible. However, when you see the evidence, then make your determination. I'm not telling you one way or the other. I really don't care. But if you know, like somebody sent me, I think it was from Leonardo da Vinci or something, one of these top thinkers, was that some people will see, some people will never see, some people will see and never even think about it, and that's something like that. And that's exactly what it is. You show this to somebody and they just they either don't want to see it, or they are unable to see it, or they think about it. Those are basically the only three options. So either you think about it, or I don't know what to tell you. But this was our ancient past, and they wrote that these creatures were literally the earth. And it appears to be that the ancient things that were written at least need to be re-examined. This is biology, no question whatsoever. And this is also the interstitium from skin. These are called Moki marbles. They say, oh, these are concretions. Well, I think they say these are stromatolites or something. These are just concretions just laying around there for no reason. No, here's where they come from. You see this? This is what it looks like when you get really up close. This bullet right here is this bullet right here. So this, we're back up here looking down, and all those little balls are really these little balls right here, and they all have little tiny straps on them, so they can only go so far into a different distance, and they will always come back to where they're supposed to be. And this is the fluid-filled highway, and this is what they look like. They have all these little tiny straps on them. It's hard to see, but there's little straps on all of them, and then there's a lot of gushy stuff, and that's why they can squish around and pull around. Now Tyson, he had one that you could actually see the ball with the strap still attached to it, about this size. Let me see if I can find that. Okay, I've made this statement many times that there is nothing that exists that I can find that is not biology. Everything is biology. Now, there are things that have been biology and turned into stone works of art and all kinds of things. Yeah, they just mix it all up and turn it into paint, whatever you want. They're all molecules that are from life. But life literally comes from light. It's everything there is made of two particles, a muon neutrino and electron neutrino. That's all there is. And those 1,823 of those make up a proton, not one big proton. This is what they don't understand. It really confuses everything because there's so much to this that depends on the fact that you have all of these particles coming from light, where the light comes out of its own accord, which is the sun. And we are children of the light. We really literally are made of the particles of light that come out from the sun. Now, they make up everything, and then they can be reconstituted to make up anything else. It's just the way it works. Light makes plants grow, plants make us grow, we make other plants grow, I mean, whatever it is. So what I'm talking about here is biology is everything. And I can't find anything that isn't biology. Even like this right here, you see this? Millions of years in one picture, this right here. That's not millions of years, that's one creature dying. Now, this white stripe here, you see that? That is what's called a tendon, the core of a tendon. Now, what a tendon does is it anchors something to something else. There was a bone here. I can almost absolutely guarantee you of that. And that bone is heavy in calcium, not like these tendons. Tendons are tough as hell. They require almost no blood because they're just nothing but connective tissue. Your bone is a totally different story. Calcium, it's easily destroyed in the salt waters and so forth, and this hot water flood. And also the flesh just gave way because of the hot water flood, and what was left was this slab of tendon. Now watch this very, very, very carefully. See that circle right there, and this heavy duty core. Hold on a second. Okay, I think I got a little interrupted there, but we're back at this. This is, like I said, a tendon, chunk of tendon. That is the ball that locks it in, and then this stuff can move a little this way and that way, sliding back and forth on all these tiny little layers. If they were big layers, you couldn't do it. You need all these very tiny little, very heavy connective tissues, and that's what they are, connective tissues. Don't require hardly any red blood because they're just like rubber bands, and I will show you this. All right, this is what you were seeing. That tendon right here, from right here to right there, and the ball is right here, and this big heavy duty strap comes down. You see the ball right there? This is the same thing here. It's just this has a nice shadow, and this has the bone where the bone would have been. Well, it is there still, basically. It's transition, but this is bolted, basically bolted to the bone. It's bolted to it so that you can move your tendon and all that, and then here's all the red muscle is here. So this is the same as that. It's just that the bone here, I didn't have that in the picture. So this right here is what we saw in the ocean with that ball. You see the round ball? And this really heavy duty strap, and then this is all very fine connective tissue. And you see the different color? I think you should be able to see that. You see how that's pink? And the other stuff there's no color to it. Let me see if I can turn the lights off. Sometimes it changes things. But, and I might have another picture of that. It gives it, this one here gives it a little better. You see the brown here? Let me back out of here. You see how it's just nothing but brown where the tendon is? The bone was right up here. And here's that ball that locks the center. That means that this thing can pivot a little bit, but only on that ball. It can't go, sliding this way and sliding that way. It's locked into the bone. So your leg can go this way or that way. If it's a leg, I don't know what it is. But that is where the main central core of the structural part of your body is. You see how tight and white that is? Then you get a lot of muscles surround it, and then it all turns into muscle a little while later. But this is the core that really holds you together, is the central strap. and that is the circle that I showed you in the one that's in the ocean. And this is just eroded completely away, and the bone is eroded. This is cheap stuff. This is easy. Now this is all the red blood up here that services this. And there's an interesting formation on, there's a couple of very interesting formations on Mars. But don't forget, this is, what I just showed you is this. All right. Bone is missing. Muscle is missing. Tendon is left over. Yeah, all right. Like I say, I got interrupted a few times, so I'm not sure what I showed you yet, but I know I've showed you this interstitium. Now, if you took that and just laid it flat on the ground, you would see all these little straps and these balls. And I told you, some of them stretch, and some of them this way, and some of them have springs in them. And the balls, though, they anchor. Now, let's look at what's up on Mars. I want to show you something. This is on Mars. It's called the Mars Morse Code. And don't start with there's no Mars, everything's cartoons and all this. This is on Devon Island. There's nothing like this on Devon Island. And this, I can tell you right now, there's no way in the world this can form even on Earth. And this is pretty good size. It's called the Mars Morse Code. Now, what are you seeing? You're seeing skin gathered together, skin gathered together, skin stretched, and the balls all just locked into where they're supposed to be. Now, some of that skin eroded. All right, you see up here? And the reason I say this can't happen on anywhere but Mars, Mars is basically, it doesn't rain. So you don't get any little rivulets or any little puddly looking things or anything. This is like sandblasted. And this is a very good size. You know, it's like here on Earth. They're huge, like the Moki marbles and something like that. And that, there is no way you could get this kind of a texture except for sandblasting it, basically. And that's what happens on Mars. Now, what happened to these straps? Why are these real long? Well, that's because the skin's stretched. And why aren't these, don't have any straps? It got sandblasted away. This is this must be a little bit of a rise here. And it swept across there and just eroded these stretched ones, because the straps are weaker than the balls. The balls are the toughest things, and the rest is highly erodible because it's wet and fleshy. Normally, of course, it's dried out now. Mars is very, very dry, but it's not. I don't think it's totally dry. Now, I showed you all these tendon balls, right? I know I did. Hold on. All right, I showed you the Moki marbles. All right, and these are the basic same thing. It's just that all of this stuff has eroded away and run away somewhere, eroded into some river or something, all that mud. This stuff is just laying here in the ocean. Now, you see what's growing on this stuff? They say, oh, that's cyanobacteria. Well, I don't care what it is. It's some kind of creature stuff, some kind of plant life or whatever it is, that it likes growing onto that ball. Why is that ball? As if it's a big stone ball. I said, well, no, that's a stromatolite or something like that. Well, no. Here's what it is. It's edible biological material. That's why they're growing on there. And we want to see what happens to them not in the ocean. Look at this. This is so cool. Moss loves blood. Look at that. Isn't that something? Look at these things. They're everywhere. And as a matter of fact, Myron is up there looking at something almost like this, only they're just balls. And I don't know what he's going to say. I was just getting to that point, and I figured I'd show these balls so that we could get past the fact that, you know, what they are. And this is nothing more than an interstitium ball. Same stuff. Same exact stuff. Only the moss is growing in here because they love anything that has blood in it. And that has, apparently, still had some blood left over in these balls. Now, Tyson had one here. Look at this. This one still has a strap on it. See a strap? This is in the skin. This is the interstitium balls in the skin. That's the strap, just like we saw up on Mars. Only this is in like a clay-looking body. And that's good size. These things are very, very big compared to what they are in us, which is microscopic. What didn't I show you? I showed you Arches National Park. That's nothing more than one of those straps. And that's nothing more than one of those balls. And that is a ponerosis tendon versus rope tendon is like this. And what he was originally looking at, I believe, is one of these. Now, I have dozens and dozens of shots of different tendon styles, because there is a ton of different styles. And I suppose I should show you a bunch of them. Well, let's see what Myron has to say. I mean, I can go on and on with this for hours. Literally, I have so much stuff on this, it's overwhelming. It's way overwhelming. Look at this one here. Same thing. There's one of these balls locked into something here. It was the same as the other one with the strap coming out. And that's fairly good size. And again, that's all it is this. What else should you see before we leave this area? Oh, I didn't show you. Well, I didn't show you this. That right there, my friends, is some kind of alien vehicle that drove on this stuff when it was wet. Right after the flood, these creatures were drowned in the flood from the impact of Venus boiling the earth. All these gigantic creatures died, exactly like it said in the ancient texts. They were giants, and Enoch talked about the size of them. They knocked that out of the ancient texts because they said nobody is ever going to believe that. Take it out. Just get rid of it. And they got rid of all the stuff that was like that. All of the stuff that was just too much, just way too much. The average person is going to think we're just totally insane. Let's just get our word out there. Don't go into any of that giant stuff. And they said, well, we got to do something. They said, well, just say there was giants in the earth in those days, and after that there was giants, and that's all. Forget about it after that. And that's what they did. And then they went on from there, how you should be a good human being and this and that. And yes, I go along with all that stuff. But there were giants in the earth, which were the Titans. They were literally locked in the earth by the god that was in charge. And it was just nothing but trying to, there was nothing but wars and absolute devastation forever. But this here, I don't know where this came from, but I can tell you what, it was here approximately 3,500 years ago. What it was, it looks to me like it was some kind of a tank tread stuff. You see this tank treads? Here. And then these here, and this up here. And this is all wet at one time, and they were just cutting these slabs and making those walls. My next video is going to be with the walls, showing all of the different features of them and how they cut them and everything and what the materials were. And this is nothing more than mineralized muscle. And over here, I believe, is where the tendons were, and because they use the tendons. So they locked this thing into the muscle, and they were cutting the tendons. It looks to me. And making those walls. And again, I'll go through that one in the next video. Oh, I didn't show you the Mars crab either. Mars crab is nothing more than a huge artery and a vein right there. And it's servicing this muscle tissue, which is called sarcomeres. Now, you see this right here? All of these are connective tissues. And they're all cut with blocks like this because they pinch together to make your muscles work. This is what supplies the energy, the blood. It's called the Mars crab. Again, no weathering, no runoff, no rivulets, no little trickles of any moisture here. None. Zero. That is not going to happen here on Earth. I don't care where you are. You're going to get rain coming down somewhere at some point in time. This is dust. That's all there is there. And I followed these missions very closely. This was from Curiosity in 2014. And they knew all about this. And they had the Mars blueberries, too. The Mars blueberries, identical. Identical. No difference whatsoever to the Moki marbles, which are here. They call them the Mars blueberries. They say identical. Zero difference. And you just saw that Mars has the interstitium. It has all the stuff on it. It has the muscle. It has everything. So there's so much that's not understood, and it doesn't want to be understood by the people that are in charge, which is killing me. And it's killing us all. You know, they're walking around in circles, spending a lot of money walking around in circles. And, I don't want to disrespect anybody, but I would certainly think that Myron, I don't think he wants to mislead you and tell you things that he knows aren't true. But you're going to have to approach him, because I already did, and he refused to engage. And all I can think is he just thinks I'm crazy. But if enough people engage with him and say, Myron, you're going to have to look at this, otherwise, you're just telling us things that aren't true. And that's true. That's the story. Now, all of the people that are making claims, those are the ones that I want to engage with. They're saying, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I say, here's what I think. And they say, no, not you. Anybody else but you. So anyway, what I just showed you cannot be denied. Absolutely cannot be denied. And this is creatures that are on steroids times a million. Nobody would ever believe this in their wildest dreams until you can stop and open your mind and look. Wisdom is looking. All right, wisdom, you don't get just wisdom for nothing. Wisdom just doesn't fall into your head. You have to look for things. You have to seek. And those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. And when they find, they will be disturbed. And then they will marvel. Because you're disturbed. You can become disturbed. There's no question whatsoever. Once you seek and you find this stuff, it is disturbing. There's no question whatsoever. And then, if you can let your mind open up, you marvel at this, because all the things that were written were as advertised, as far as I can determine. Dragons, giants, monsters, heaven, hell, I think it's all there. It appears to be every culture had it. Not one didn't. Every single one had the same kind of stories, twisted here, twisted there, but they all had dragons and giants and monsters and some afterlife that was good or bad, and they had evil ones and they had good ones, creatures, and then there's a lot of them talked about sky creatures and sky battles, and and then there's other ones that appear to be talking about alien encounters. And when you see stuff like this, you have to think there probably was. That didn't get there for no reason whatsoever. The way I'm looking at this, I don't know how it got here, because it may have driven here, but I don't know, because it looks like it came down out of the sky, to be perfectly honest with you. And then these might have been just like anchors into this soft stuff so that it wouldn't slide. And this could also be an anchor into the end so that it wouldn't slide down this way. And otherwise it was like on a platform. That's the only thing I can think. And and you actually could make a case for the fact that, well, no, you really can't. How are they going to be cutting these slabs? This had to be some kind of gigantic machine that had a and cutting the slabs, and then they moved those slabs down, put them in the walls. They were already wet. You can see it was wet. When they cut that, it was wet. They put them in the walls wet. And I can show you all. I can account for the bumps. I can account for everything, all of the different. And I can show you places where they used inferior quality body parts. It's off the charts crazy. And they use tendons for slides for the kids, like an amusement park. I'm not kidding you, tendons. Okay, so once again, my response to Myron, this is Myron Cook, that's his channel, and he is out here showing all those balls, just like I showed you before. They're all over the place. Now let's hear what he has to say for an explanation.
Walking through this amazing scene, I ponder the history that brought it to view. I hope that you take the opportunities available to you to explore your natural surroundings.
All right, let's see what's this explanation. Now, as he goes through them, I can see already that these are interstitium balls. These are the ones that there's a bazillion of them. And they, well, let me just show you some. Watch for these kind of signs right here as I show you what they look like when they do break. All right, this is what, they usually break like this. And you see a little scale circle like this snapped off in the interstitium ones, and that's what these are. Oops, where's Myron? Myron, where'd you go? There you are. Okay, here we go. Now, so again, look for this kind of little break. This is what they are, but anyway, watch this. Let's see what he's got to say.
Now this is fun, isn't it? We've found the layer where we have these blobs in the outcrop in the side of the hill.
All right, this is the skin. That's basically skin or whatever, and right between below is your interstitium, the layer that can push around in. These are the anchors. So that's what he's looking at, skin, and then the interstitium underneath there. So he's saying we got layers where we had these blobs. Well, let me go back a little bit. I don't want to cut Myron short. And like I say, I'm not belittling anybody at all. This is very, very, off the chart stuff. And him as a geologist, trust me, they never talked to him anything about biology. He obviously doesn't understand biology. Well, maybe he does understand biology and just can't focus. He's focusing on biology here, and the biology is really here. So, and I can focus in deep and close. Here goes.
Now this is fun, isn't it? We've found the layer where we have these blobs in the outcrop in the side of the hill. We've thought how interesting they may be. We made a few observations there. We want to follow that layer out around the side of the anticline where it's exposed and see if we might find better opportunities to study these spheres or these blobs. And here we are. Boy, have we ever been lucky, haven't we? We've now, the top 25 feet or so of the frontier formation has eroded gently down to slowly reveal these spheres, which obviously are more resistant to erosion than the sandstone that they're encased in, and hence they're eroded out in this beautiful relief.
Okay, a couple things. I believe just exactly what he said. I have no quarrel with that. However, what was really here was primarily clays, kaolin clays, bentonite clays, the soft, gooey, really slippery stuff, because that's what this is, a slippery, slurpy stuff. And it ran off. He's right. It did run off. So what was left? These balls. That's the erosion. Here we go. So it's encased, and hence they eroded out in this beautiful relief. Well, where did they come from to erode out of, Myron? That's what we want to know.
Now, we've had a lot of ideas about these spheres. We've talked about what they remind us of, the shapes, etc. In fact, I had a local older gentleman stop by just a bit ago, and he was wondering if they were brought in by glaciers. So there you go, another idea. So it's time to get to business. We've made a few observations, but we need to make some more serious ones. So let's walk around, make a few key observations, and then talk about what we really believe, narrow down our ideas, and come to hopefully an answer that's satisfactory. So let's get started. The first simple thing we can do is make observations about the feel of them, just how they feel to the hand.
This is the snap part comes off.
Just as I expected, it feels rough. I don't know if you'll see it on in video, but I see tiny little sparkles. Those are from feldspar crystals. The faces of them reflect the light.
Okay, feldspar is aluminum silicates. All right, now, aluminum silicate, and everything there is, basically, all stone has feldspar. Now, don't forget, remember I talked to you about this is where these little straps come in, down in here, to hold inside the ball. Now, these are all the little pockets where your flesh grows into this. And as I showed you before, it's quite obvious this is precisely what I showed you here. Right there. These are the little pockets on the side. He says it's rough. And this here is the little piece that's missing. And there's little fibrils that go down into there. Because they are, this is what they are like, really. These little fibrils go down inside there. Now, here's Myron again. So here's what I said, the little piece that breaks off. And you see how it's growing? That's where the bloody spot was, basically. That's why it's growing like that. And down here is the roughy spot that all that stuff locks it into your flesh. Now, he just said feldspar. Feldspar, 100% of feldspar is aluminum silicates. Now, there's other inclusions along with that, but it's always based on aluminum silicates. Now, what I showed you before was the phosphid bilipid membrane. Okay, it's phosphorus, and when it boiled down, it ended up into aluminum silicates, AlSi. This turned from the bilipid layer, which is everything has a bilipid layer on it, every single bit of this, 100%. And when it boils down, it turns to aluminum silicate, which creates that coating, which protects everything. That's what this coating is. This is nothing but feldspar too. That's feldspar, and this is what's called crustated igneous rock, crustal igneous rock. And that's the crust, which is the feldspar, but it is nothing more than the slurpy membrane that's around here. It's a membrane. The same as this. In different biology, in different pieces of the membrane, which such as this, which was all the little straps came down into these holes down inside. It has a different chemistry, so it grows different plant life. This over here is a little reddish looking. This over here is, red over here and green over there. Now, let's continue on with Myron. But you can see, I think I just made my case, but let's see how he interprets this.
We have the beautiful lichen on the surface, so they like it. And that's because it's a sandstone.
No, it's because
I've looked at it
blood.
with my hand lens, and it's a very nice sandstone. So that's an important observation.
All right, when he says sandstone is nothing more than densely silicon biology. All right, because right here, you see this? Hold on a second. I got a heart here somewhere. I never can find what I need. Well, this one's cut in half, but it is a heart as well. This is nothing more than sandstone if you ground it up. This is siliconized flesh. Well, it's not really flesh. It's from that stone. Watch.
Carry on. Coming up into this area, we see kind of a different surface texture to these spheres. I see kind of subtle layering within those.
All right, this is where in different areas in the depths of your tissue, you have different anchors types, it appears, because there's such a variety of them. I mean, there's tons of different ones. Now, this is really good that he's doing this, because he's showing that as you come up further and further, they're changing in the same person's body, or same creature's body. Now, I never really could figure out whether if he's coming really quickly from those other ones down here. All right, these are clearly different. These are clearly different surface. Now, if he's right away going to the top 25 feet or so of the frontier formation eroded away. Now, he's going up to this spot. Let's pick it up here again. So he says this is the lichen love it, and they do. Oh, lichen and moss. You see, the moss and the lichen, they just love red blood. And black. The black blood is usually by the lichen, the white lichen. The red blood is the red and the green. Now, so he's going to go forward from here. Let's see if we can determine what he's saying here.
The beautiful lichen on the surface, so they like it, and that's because it's a sandstone. I've looked at it with my hand lens, and it's a very nice sandstone. So that's an important observation. Let's carry on.
It's not sandstone inside. Sandstone is just on the surface, a highly siliconized body tissue, basically.
Coming up into this area, we
see he's saying coming up into this area. Now, I don't know for how far away he is from where he was, but he's obviously, if he's just walking up saying, I'm coming up into this area. This, I've seen a lot of these. But he's going from a nice clean looking ones up to fractured ones that are fractured all over. Now why?
See kind of a different surface texture to these spheres. I see kind of a subtle layering within those, like bedding is what I see. Now I have some experience with this, so it's a little easier for me to see, but these lines that go across these spheres, you see them all through here. They're weathered out in that way. So those are depositional layers within the sandstone that are preserved within the spheres.
All right. My take on this is that these up here, I'd have to really be on site to be sure, but these are up high. Now, there was a worldwide flood which was highly dense in silicon. Extremely dense in silicon, which turns stuff hard and solid, which is what he said. He looked at it and he said it's sandstone. You know, the ball ones, which they're going to be really sandstone if they stayed under that siliconized water in that boiling hot water for a long time, which they would because they're lower. These up here, I think maybe that's why they have scaled out like this, because they weren't in the water long enough. Let's go back and look at this one more time. He's down here in the lower end here. All right, and he's looking at these, and I can clearly see, there's no question whatsoever in my mind that these are from the interstitium. And they have not fractured. Now, he comes up here and he says, I looked at it real careful, and it is sandstone.
To the hand. Just as I expected, it feels rough. I don't know if you'll see it on in video, but I see tiny little sparkles. Those are from feldspar crystals. The faces of them reflect the light. We have the beautiful lichen on the surface, so they like it. And that's because it's a sandstone. I've looked at it with my hand lens.
All right, here's where he's showing it's a sandstone. Well, that is not really indicative of anything, because it was saturated in silicon-rich dense waters, and that's why it became more stabilized. The sandstone, well, let me show you something. Sandstone is nothing but quartz. Quartz is nothing but silicon dioxide, SiO2. Now, silicon dioxide, there was not much of it when the flood came. But when the flood came, because it impacted the oceans and brought all that silicon dioxide up, silicates. There was a layer of silicates down there. It's over a mile thick, way deep in the ocean. They know about it, and they just did a big thing about it recently. That they basically discovered it or rediscovered it. But all it is gravity brings it down into this liquid layer that's down there. And when we got hit by Venus, almost, all the oceans boiled up. And even Yale says it was a very unusual event. The oceans were filled with silicon. Nobody knows why. But here's what silicon does. It invades where it can wrap around and get inside, and like veins of quartz veins. They call them quartz veins. They are. They're veins. They're actually veins and arteries inside of the creatures. And look at this. This is a lung. That's the lung. And any doctor that has any idea of what lungs look like would say, yeah, that's a lung. And there's the strap that holds it in the body. They're held like this. And that right there is where the plumbing in the lung is in the back. And it's filled with quartz, SiO2. There was so much quartz that it invaded all the surfaces. And if there was, the feldspar this is all coated with feldspar too, and I think he mentioned it was, but it's sandstone. But feldspar is part of sandstone as well. See, he's saying sandstone normally is a sedimentary rock. Well, that sandstone was not sedimentary. And it's mostly consists of quartz sand, but it can also contain significant amounts of feldspar. And it does. And it is not sedimentary. That rock was a body part. Okay, so that claim does not hold up, that this is strictly sandstone and this is feldspar. Now, he goes up to this area up here. All right, and he's looking at these rocks and trying to make heads or tails of these. Let's see what he has to say.
All through here, they're weathered out in that way. So those are depositional layers within the sandstone that are preserved within the spheres. So another key observation. Most of these are very spherical in nature, although sometimes they do get some irregular shapes. So if I come right over here and take a look, we see one that's kind of a longer shape, kind of a tube shaped almost. Short tube, but nevertheless it's not spherical.
That's just been smashed basically.
And in this area we see multiple spheres that kind of merge together. If you can see this, yeah, they touch and merge together. I've seen several like that. So they're not always isolated spheres. Another nice example of these spheres that kind of merge together. Sometimes they almost look like dinner rolls that have been baked together. Here is one that has quite a long shape to it. And then right at the very end, up there in the shadows, a nice little round ball at the end. Here's one that is split. There are not too many of them that are split here. And I've looked inside. I don't see anything unusual inside along that fracture face. Here is a nice half sphere where it has been split pretty much in the middle along here.
You know what? I'm going to tell you what. You're probably going to want to come up here and watch this. That's good. I think we've seen enough to understand what his take on this is. Well, I don't know what his take is, to be perfectly honest with you. Let me find out what he does think. Here, there's a shot right up here. That's why we see it in outcrops. Let me see if I can figure out what he is claiming here. Hold on. All right, let him make his point. You know, he could be right. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think I've shown something to support my side of it. Let's see what he has to say. All right, here's how he's going to explain these blobs.
And because it's more resistant. Even though it's all cemented, this cement, there's more of it, or it may be a different type of cement that is more resistant to erosion. It might be have more iron in it, an iron oxide, which is common out here. It gives us this rusty color. I almost always see
that rusty color is from blood. But where did it come from in the first place, Myron? I know they're still here. They didn't erode like everything else, but why are they even there in the first place?
More iron in the concretions in the Bighorn Basin. So there you go. That's the formation of concretions.
I'm continually amazed at the diversity of inspiring scenes that I encounter in nature. Sometimes they are interesting geologic features, and other times it's the vegetation thriving on high mountain slopes.
They're growing on blood.
I think it's pretty clear now that the first feature that we saw is a concretion that has been split in two, giving us this half sphere. Let's go back to this area and explore some more.
Well, we've learned a lot about concretions together, haven't we? We've seen some really beautiful concretions. Most of them large spheres, which is kind of fun for this. But I wanted to come back and talk about the early concretions that I showed you, where you have the ball that's sitting underneath, or within, I should say. And those tend to be darker color. And then the outer part tends to be lighter. And I want you to think for a minute, how is it that you can have that occur in a concretionary situation? And if you think about it a minute, I'm sure you'll come with the same conclusion that I have, or at least...
Well, I don't think so, Myron. It's biology, my friend, but let's hear what his conclusion was and see if you agree with Myron. Here we go. And I want you people to comment. And I want you to go up to his channel and ask him to discuss this, with me, if he would, and leave comments like that. What you're showing are giant creatures' body parts. Be respectful. I'm not trying to, this is a hard thing for people to accept. But he's acting like there's no question whatsoever. You kind of come to the same conclusion. Well, I'm certainly not going to. Now, here he goes. You see.
How is it that you can have that occur in a concretionary situation? And if you think about it a minute, I'm sure you'll come with the same conclusion that I have, or at least I like to think that. And that is that the chemistries of the groundwater change through time. So let's imagine in our heads together for a minute. You have groundwaters that are relatively iron-rich, building a concretion within the sandstone. And then at some point, let's say the concretion's this size, just for the fun of it, the chemistry of the water changes and it doesn't have as much iron. But the concretionary process continues. So it builds an outer, larger sphere that has less iron in it and more calcium carbonate type cement that is growing and creating this concretion. That's a fairly simple scenario, and I think it's the most likely one. So now that your eyes are tuned into these spheres and some of the characteristics of them, you can see them easily, can't you? We've got a sphere within a sphere here, beautifully eroded one. I like this one.
Yeah, I just want to make you understand. There was a ball, and there was a strap coming up through here. This was in the skin, and it goes into the center strap, center ball, which is a different material. Now, let's just finish up with my stuff, because I got a lot more stuff to show you, but I'm going to explain everything that he showed. The two different colors, that it wasn't from, well, let me show you. Okay, my friends, this is what Myron was talking about, was these blueberries. These are exactly like the Mars blueberries, the Mogi marbles, and they have a coating around here and an inner core, and sometimes it will create these two completely separate types of metals, basically. But anytime you see different colors, it's basically transition metal causing that change in color. And there are a bunch of different transition metals, and when these things died and they're in certain conditions, and I can't tell you why this exactly happens here, because sometimes it doesn't do this, but this one here has this very vibrant looking color because it was probably within a lot of transition metals, which is blood, and then there had to be some chemistry along with it, some salts or acids or enzymes or whatnot. But this particular type of tissue wanted to adhere to this particular type of metal, whatever it was, and it might be a mix of metals. And this one here wanted to go primarily for, looks like, ferrous oxides, iron. Okay, this is what Myron may not understand, is that in the human body, or in any creature's body, you are continuously changing the molecules in your body by adding glucose and iron and oxygen and all kinds. So it's a transition. Transition means when you have extra oxygenation states, they have extra orbitals or electron zones that can attach to something and drop something off. These are in your blood. Your blood is absolutely saturated with metals, and it flows through your body, picking up and delivering things. Basically, just think about it that way. But when it does, it normally has these colors. Now, normally you don't see it because it's just all mixed up with the red blood. It's almost 90% or so of iron in your blood. And then there's just the watery stuff, and then there's the transition metals, and there is a lot of these, and there are all these different colors. Now, when you die, the stuff that normally transitions in and out says, "Hey, I need some more of that glucose." Says, "I don't have any. The guy died; it's not making any more glucose." So he says, "Well, is there any transition metal out there that will fulfill that to make me stable, so I don't rot away?" And they say, "Yeah, go." Some vanadium, the +3 state, and you're good to go. And zoop, it goes down, it makes it green. That's what happens in transition metal, to where I showed you that's 2 different layers in that Moki marble. Well, I'm going to show you a heart. And you remember these colors. And don't forget, a heart is nothing but a big bag full of blood. And that's why the opals in Australia they have so many good opals, is because Australia is literally nothing but a scab. It is just literally one big piece of blood. It's just soaking red. And that is ferrous oxide from the blood. Now, let me just show you this now. All right, I just showed you all those transition metals. This is a heart. And this is, remember, every tissue in your body has requirements, and it has membranes, and it has certain chemistry to do a certain job. The heartstrings and the ventricle walls apparently have some affinity to grab onto some color that makes it to some metal that makes it turn this color. Now, all of these little color spots here are all different transition metals, because your blood is just a big bag full of transition metals. Now, this one here, the plasma, has drifted to the top. So this was laying flat like this when the guy died, or whatever it was. And that's why the heavier stuff drifts to the bottom, the lighter stuff goes to the top. But you can see all these different colors, and there's the tubing, which is almost inert. So it doesn't really, it doesn't grab stuff and deliver and picks things up. It's an inert piece of tissue that pumps blood from. I mean, it's tubing. It doesn't have to be infused with a lot of nutrients. And there's the fascia that coats around the whole heart, and these are all the different ventricles and whatever, the aorta and so forth. And these are the colors. And those are the transition metals. And that died in some condition where it's primarily silicate with the transition metals attached. And there's some chemistry that can create opals. And I don't know how long it takes, but it's either acids and salts and a lot of silicates and a lot of blood and maybe who knows what else. But it's all chemistry. And you might have to have some enzymes in there. I don't know. Because enzymes do a lot of the transitioning very, very quick of these molecules. And that's how your body feeds itself, is with enzymes. Enzymes break food down just like that. Anyway, and they kill invaders just like that. But you have to have the bacteria or you don't get the enzymes, and the enzymes do the chemistry. So you don't end up with the chemistry, you get invasion, you get all kind of things. So, I got so much to show that it's going to take me forever. So I have a ton of shots of these stone balls, every different configuration. I'm going to show you a few real quick, but I got just stacks of them. All right, these are all different styles of stone walls. You see, this one here has, what's going, should be open, there it goes. It has all of this webbing inside of it, and what that's all about, I'm not sure. This was where the strap attached. Now the webbing style, I think this anchored into some body part where it could goo around a little bit and still stay anchored. Some of them are locked in and they're not going to move whatsoever. And they have a ton of little balls and little pockets in them. This looks to me like it's kind of a gooey, fabricy thing that could maybe twist and do a little bit of articulating and still stay locked in, because your flesh would be growing into these pockets, but it would be a little more movable. I don't know. That's what I'm taking out of it. But this, I got so many of these, and to go in and look at every little detail of them, whoops, it's in this here. They're all over the place. They're everywhere. Look at this one. The kids are playing in this one. They're all over the beaches. They're eroding out of the shores. They're everywhere. The Earth is nothing more than a gigantic creature at one time. It appears to me. And they fall apart, and they make these little blocky looking things. I got, again, and not only that, I want to go over all of the stone walls down in South America. And here's one's friend Lily Lavender sent me this one. This is nothing more than flesh. And that's a stone wall that was locked in. That was where the little strap came out, and they just erode away from the walls. So let's call it quits for today. Again, the next time we're going to go into how they cut these slabs, what slabs they used, what body parts they used, and how they built the walls, and a lot of information about that, the little bumps on it on the walls and all that stuff. So that'll be the next one. All right, so hopefully I'm going to probably do that within the next day or so. I think we're moving forward on this. I think we're getting some traction. People are starting to understand it's not silly. There's a lot of consequences to this. This is not just something spectacular, although it is that for sure. But in addition to that, it may have some very serious consequences for who knows what. It may have no effect on anything, but it could have an effect on who knows what. Like I say, the first thing to do is learn what we are in front of our faces. And then if it means anything, and the only way you can see if it means anything is to look into what was written about these kind of things. And it's all written about. It's every bit of it. It's 100% written about. And they had to take it out of all the ancient texts because it was so insane that nobody could speak about it. Even Jesus Christ, who knew, I'm sure he knew all of this stuff, he couldn't speak about it. If they would think you're totally insane, off the wall crazy. So that's what happened to me. But I have so much evidence. Now, Jesus Christ, he couldn't come up with it and Google Earth and show all these dragons, and he didn't have all of this stuff and microscopes and everything else. So, but I'm sure he knew the whole shooting match, and like Herodotus and all of those, they chastised these people for talking about giants, for talking about dragons, for talking about all of the things that were written in the ancient mythologies. And I go with right now Apollodorus, and it is just over the top insane. And Gaia was Earth. She was Mother Earth, and she had sex with the sky. And they had titans and giants and monsters and cyclopses and everything else. And the sky was afraid they would overthrow him, so they forced. He would eat the children when they were born, and these were Gaia's children, and she got mad. And they went downhill from there. There was just a nightmare of a fight on Earth, and all through the solar system it appears, and there's body parts everywhere. And I don't care what anybody says until they start talking. You can see, all you can do is call me an idiot until they start looking at the evidence. Then we can talk. But I get this all the time. I get a ton of people, and I just, it's tiring because there's no response. All right, let's sit and talk. Let's explain these things. Explain to me how this rock formation happened. I don't even think I showed you this. This is a tendon right here. And remember I told you they can swivel? It's locked in up here. These are all the tendon straps, and they have those little slurpees in between them too, you see? Just like the ones at Tyson's. This is another place, a small tendon, not compared to stuff he's got. And that comes out, and eventually it meets up with the muscle, which is eroded away. That's all. And this is the tendon part. It doesn't take any real blood to run it. It's more or less just rubbery stuff, which is what tendons do. So the next deal we're going to do is we're going to go over more. There is so much more to look into. And then, like I say, I'm really starting to relate it to these ancient texts, and boy, it makes sense. Once you go back to Ramses and all of Velikovsky's work and start to put those pieces together, man, it just fits together like you can't unfit it. It just is perfectly matched to the events and the material evidence that supports those events. And they were recorded everywhere on Earth. They all had giants and monsters and dragons and eternities and all of that's business. So it appears to be that they were not just making silly jokes about things. This was what actually happened. This was our true history. So we'll talk again. I love you all. Thank you. Bye. Okay, my friends, as you know, I've been talking about Myron's work versus my interpretation. He's asking a question, who's got an answer for this? Do you agree with me? And I don't. And that's not to be disrespectful, it's just that for Myron to be making all these claims, it's an obligation of a scientist to examine evidence that's contradictory, and but it's got to be evidence. It can't be just you're wrong because you're an idiot. No, and that's basically what I have gotten back from virtually everybody that is a geologist, and more or less from Myron. I tried to correspond with him, and he did respond back, but basically that we had nothing to talk about, and we do, because if he's looking for honesty and truth, I am showing you something that I don't think can be dismissed easily, for sure. There's certainly room for a discussion. And, I'll take into account his interpretations. I already have, and I have a different interpretation. So I want him to take into account mine. We'll weigh them out and say, well, his different fluids and so forth. Yes, absolutely, there was different floods. There was a lot of different floods, no question about that. And there's a lot of different erosion, patterns of erosion, absolutely, no question about that. But what was eroding originally was biology, basically. So all I can tell you, there was a great flood, and even Yale University agrees with this now, that there was a great flood, and it created all of these soft body, exceptionally preserved soft body Ediacara biota, which is soft body creatures, due to silica rich oceans. Just as I told you, when we almost got hit by Venus, all of the silicates came up from the bottom, and they say that's the only time in history that they've ever seen that happen. These silicates come up. They can do some layering of geology where they have true sedimentation. That's a whole different story than looking at these layers and seeing concretions, which are nothing more than tendon enthesis. There are sedimentation layers, no question. And they were laid down in succession, no question. And they contain different elements based on the conditions at that time, no question. That is not what I'm presenting. I am presenting biology, my friend, on steroids. So, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good evening.